Welcome to this video guide on setting up the Flutter SDK on Windows for app development. By the end of this video, you'll have everything you need to start creating incredible apps using Flutter. I'll explain everything step by step. So, let's start. Open your web browser and search for Flutter, then go to flutter.dev, which is the official Flutter website. Click the Get Started button and choose Windows. Click on the Stable Zip File button. The package download will begin. It might take some time depending on your internet speed. Now that the downloading is complete, let's proceed with the installation. Locate the downloaded zip file. You can find it in your Downloads folder. Extract the zip file and choose a destination folder for installing Flutter. This could be your home directory or any other directory you prefer. I'm going to create a separate directory on my drive named Packages. It's recommended to avoid paths with special characters or spaces. Also, avoid from installing Flutter in directories that require elevated privileges, like the Program Files folder on the Windows drive. To use Flutter commands from any directory, you'll need to add the Flutter binary directory to your system's path environment variable. Let's go to the Flutter bin folder and copy the location. Type env in the search and select Edit Environment Variables for your account. Click Environment Variables and choose Path. Click Edit, then select New and paste the location. Click OK for all windows and close them. Now open the command prompt and run the Flutter Doctor command. The first run of this command might take some time. This command checks your system and provides guidance on any missing dependencies or configurations. As you can see from the welcome message, Flutter is installed. After you've installed Flutter, you'll need to set up additional tools and configurations that are specific to each platform. Because different platforms, such as Android, Windows, or the web, have their own specific tools and requirements for development. Now it's showing some errors and warnings. Green check indicates that the requirement tool is installed. Yellow check means it's not necessary, and you can develop apps without them. For instance, it gives a warning that Android Studio is not installed, but you can use other IDEs for the same job. Red check means you have to install these tools for creating apps on the related platform. For example, it gives an error for the Android toolchain, which is necessary for creating Android apps. Also, for creating apps for Windows, it asks for Visual Studio. Now, let's download and install Android Studio and the Android toolchain. Because Flutter recommends installing the full setup of Android Studio. Search for Android Studio and go to the developer.android.com site. Click on the Download Android Studio button. It will show you the Terms and Conditions page. Check the box to agree with the terms and conditions, and then click Download. Android Studio will start downloading. After downloading Android Studio, locate the file and run it. You will see the installation wizard. In the installation location window, you can customize the location. I'm going to change the location to a directory I previously created, where I will create a separate folder named Android, containing one more folder for Android Studio. Feel free to change the directory to your preference. After selecting the location for Android Studio, start the installation. After completing the installation, launch Android Studio. In the Setup options, choose Custom for Android SDK components. And in the SDK location setting, I'm going to create another directory with the name SDK inside the directory I have just created. Leave the remaining settings at their default. And accept the licenses for Android SDK. Downloading the components will take some time, so I'm going to skip the downloading process. After you've downloaded the SDK components, launch the SDK Manager. Within the SDK Tools section, choose Android SDK Command Line Tools and click OK. The download of the SDK Command Line Tools will then begin. Click Finish, close the window, and open the command prompt. After opening the command prompt, enter Flutter Doctor and press Enter. You'll observe that the Android Studio warning has disappeared, but there's still an unresolved matter regarding the Android SDK's location. Let's address this concern. Navigate to the location of the SDK. Copy the path and open the command prompt. In the command prompt type Flutter config --Android -SDK, followed by your SDK path, and then press Enter. Now that the path has been updated, let's run the Flutter Doctor command again. The error related to the Android toolchain has disappeared. However, there is still a warning about Android licenses. To address this, let's copy and run this command. It will show you the licenses that have not been accepted. Accept these licenses by entering Y and then pressing the Enter button. Now that all the licenses are accepted, run the Flutter Doctor command once more. So, we have configured the Android setup for Flutter. Now, let's address the error that says Visual Studio is not installed. Search for Visual Studio and click on the download link, which leads to the visualstudio.microsoft.com/downloads page, where you can choose which edition of Visual Studio to download. Make sure to select Visual Studio Community, as this is the free version. Once the installer is downloaded, run it by double-clicking on the downloaded file. After installation, it will open the workload installation window, which will present you with options to customize your installation. You can choose workloads and components based on your development needs. However, for Flutter, please select desktop development with C++ as your preferred option. You can choose the installation location for Visual Studio, or you can stick with the default location provided by the installer. Click the Install button to start the installation process. The installer will download and install the selected components. Because the installation duration may vary depending on internet speed and the chosen components, it will take some time. So, let me skip the downloading progress. Once the installation is complete, you'll see a completed message. Open the command prompt and run Flutter Doctor again. Now, you should see green checkmarks everywhere. Well done! The Flutter SDK, along with all the tools you need for different platforms, is completely installed. You can begin creating apps for any platform you want.